Happy New Year! Yes, we're here again and we're doing this again. Last year I started a new tradition of doing a kind of overview video for the whole year, talking about various media related stuff that I didn't talk about in other videos. And I enjoyed doing that so much, and I think it worked out so well that I thought I'm going to make this a yearly thing from now on. Now, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm going to do what I did last year and basically do it in chronological order. So let's get started. I guess the first thing to talk about would be the first film that I saw in 2021, the first new film that I saw in 2021, which was Freaky, the one with Vince Vaughn as the serial killer who body swaps with a teenage girl. Now, this looked fun from the trailer. It sounded like a fun premise. I have to admit, I didn't like it at all. I'm sorry to start this off on a downer, but I liked the idea, and again, I thought the trailer looked fun, but I just found both the characters and the style of the whole movie just so incredibly obnoxious that it just bugged the living crap out of me. Okay, moving swiftly on. Another movie that I saw. Another new movie, which was Happiest Season. This stars Kristen Stewart as a girl who's heading off to spend her first Christmas with her girlfriend's family and meet them for the first time. Only to find out en route, like halfway there, that they just think she's her roommate because her girlfriend hasn't yet told her parents she's gay. This festive rom-com that actually came out in late 2020, but it took me till earlier this year to see it, was actually pretty entertaining and likeable. It's got a good cast, including Mary Steenburgen, Alison Brie from Community, and Victor Garber from Alias. And it's genuinely funny, sweet, and even touching. This was a good film. I liked it. It was certainly a big improvement on Freaky. Now, I guess next up would be... So, yeah, it would be something that is not a TV show I watched and not a movie that I watched, but it's something media related that happened in relation to something that happened the previous year. Now, if you remember, I talked about this in the 2020 overview. I'll recap it if you don't. I did a review of season 1 of Wicked Science, and a fellow YouTuber called Nickamon asked me for permission to remake it using my voice, but using clips from the show rather than just the photos that I'd used. And I said yes, and he did it, and it was all very nice. And he didn't tell me that he was going to tweet it to Bridget Novell, who played Elizabeth in Wicked Science, of course. And she was terribly nice about it. And I talked about this on the 2020 overview, how much that was surprising. And I also mentioned, it was like, oh wow, that's a little bit embarrassing considering that I basically confessed to being a little bit sweet on her in that vid. So of course, good old Nickamon tweets those sections of the 2020 overview to Bridget as well. Of course he does. To which she responded, I'm kinda sweet on you too, Cody. Oh dear me. Now, I'm not a Twitter person. I do have an account, but I don't use it because I'm not interested in that sort of thing. I'm not getting caught up in that nonsense. But, you know, that was just so terribly sweet and funny and kind-hearted that I just felt the need to say thank you for being so sweet. But because my Twitter account is not under the same name as my YouTube account, I had to kind of clarify what I was talking about, and I said, you know, my name's not actually Cody. To which she responded, what an awkward start to our love story. You know, I think she was actually actively trying to make me blush at this point. Job well done. But yes, that was unexpected and very, very funny and very, very sweet. I mean, what an absolute sport. What an absolute sport. Okay, on to the next thing. The next thing would be, I guess it would be one of the Blu-ray sets, the Doctor Who Blu-ray sets, the Season 8 Blu-ray set, which I bought. Now, I have not seen all of it. I have watched Terror of the Autons on Blu-ray. Now, the first thing that I want to say is that the picture quality, while perhaps not as good as some, because the Terror has always been very rough, is still an improvement on previous editions. So too are the optional CGI special effects, including the troll doll, and particularly the Nestine at the end, which is so gargantuan and terrifying that it almost actually improves the ending, in the sense that you almost understand why the Master suddenly chickens out, because on the original version it kind of looks a bit lame. The Master goes through all this palaver and then suddenly changes his mind at the end. You can actually almost understand it at this point when he looks at that bloody thing. However, to me, the best thing about the whole thing of the upgraded version was the smoothing out of all that terrible, garish CSO back projection stuff, which always looked so awful. Especially on the stuff where you've got back projection on stuff that didn't need to be back projection, like somebody's freaking kitchen and stuff like that, or a laboratory. And yet it looks so much better and so much more natural and so much less garish than it used to. To me, it made the story a lot easier to watch, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't think I've ever enjoyed Terror of the Autons more. So a big thumbs up and bravo to the Blu-ray team for that. Now, next up, I think we're getting to about July at this point. A couple of things popped up on YouTube that were of interest. One of which was like a 28-year-old edition from like January 1993 of The Big Breakfast. Now, if you don't know what The Big Breakfast was, I think it was like some kind of Saturday morning kids show. I wasn't there at that point. I don't remember it being on in 91. It was some kind of weird Saturday morning like kids show sort of thing. And the only reason I'm mentioning it is because this clip had two stars from Neighbours there. Ashley Pask, who played Matt Robinson in the early 90s, and lovely Amelia Frid, who of course played Cody, one of my favourite characters. That was completely unexpected to suddenly pop up. It was in relation to that pantomime that they both did at the end of 92, beginning of 93. But I had no idea that existed. I had no idea that she'd been on The Big Breakfast. So it was like, oh my God, where did this come from? I mean, to be fair, The Big Breakfast looks bloody awful. And I mean, the clip itself isn't that great. Because it's just like Chris Evans prattling about with these two puppets. And both Amelia and Ashley both look thoroughly bewildered by the whole thing. They don't even ask them anything, really. They're just prattling about while they sit there looking completely confused, and I don't blame them. But it was just so unexpected to find something that I never knew existed. It's just suddenly popped up on YouTube. That was great. In the same vein, was like later in the same month, something else on YouTube, albeit this was actually new, this was actually a new thing, was a new interview with the aforementioned Bridget Novell, which came as a complete surprise. I think it was like a foreign TV station from an overseas country that had great success with Wicked Science, and that was why they were interviewing her. That was why they wanted to interview her. So that was a complete surprise, because I mean, I wasn't really expecting to see Bridget again anytime soon. Obviously, she was in those 3 episodes of Neighbours in 2020, but she's pretty much retired from all that sort of thing, so I wasn't really expecting to see her again anytime soon. So that was a nice surprise, and it was also nice. It was also interesting to actually see her talking about Wicked Science, because I mean, I've seen her talk about Neighbours, but I've never really seen her talk about Wicked Science before. So that was interesting. And it was especially nice because, she basically was on exactly the same page as me, as the stuff that I said in those Wicked Science reviews about her character, Elizabeth. Basically exactly the same opinions there. So that was pretty nice too. So that was a real nice surprise for that. I really enjoyed that. Moving on. I guess I picked up the Doctor Who season 24 Blu-ray at this point later on. I can't have much to say to that because I haven't actually seen any of it. A new movie that I picked up was The Conjuring 3. Unfortunately, yeah, yes, it's another downvote for a modern movie, I'm afraid. I really found this very dull, not scary in the slightest, and just the whole thing just felt deeply paint by numbers by this point. Honestly, my interest in this franchise is pretty much bottomed out. I think it's time to retire it, honestly, because it's old news. I'm sorry, but it is. Now, next up would be the release of the Web of Fear Special Edition, which of course included a brand new animation of the missing episode 3. Now, I watched the whole thing after I bought it. I still love the Web of Fear. Still a wonderfully atmospheric chiller and one of the best Patrick Troughton stories. As for the episode 3 animation, what did I think of it? Given that everybody else hated it, I thought it was absolutely god-awful. Now, I'm not one for hyperbole, ho ho, and I have actually defended and enjoyed many animations that fandom seems to have universally slagged off. I liked Through From the Deep just fine. I really enjoyed the Reign of Terror animation as well. Sorry, but I really did. But yeah, the Web 3 one is, oh god, it really is the absolute pits, isn't it? Honestly, it's genuinely unwatchable. I literally turned it off after about 10 minutes, and I tried to watch the colour version to see if that was any better. It wasn't. I ended up watching the rest of the episode via the recon. And I hate recons, but it was way less off-putting and annoying than that awful, awful animation. If they're going to do the 3D style again, they need to do it a lot better than this one. I hate to jump on the bandwagon, but yeah, in this case, the bandwagon is right. It was terrible. Please do not do that again, BBC. Now, next up was something that happened. My TV died. After 7 years, my TV died. That's why I had to buy a new one. And I bought a smart TV. And after a month of kind of resisting the urge, I thought, oh, okay, I'll give it a go. And I actually subscribed to Netflix. So I actually saw a few things. I've actually seen a few things on Netflix in the second half of the year. Now, the first one that I want to talk about was Fear Street 1994, which was the first of a linked trilogy Netflix movies of kind of teen horror movies. Now, it's about a bunch of teenagers living in a small town that's supposedly the psycho capital of the world, and they kind of discover that the gruesome history of their town may be down to the curse of a vengeful witch, and now they are on her hit list too. Now, this horror flick, which was, again, it was 2020, but I didn't see it till this year, was actually way better than I was expecting, or had any right to be. I mean, you click on things on Netflix and you watch 5 minutes and you're like, nah. And I clicked on this, and after the first 5 minutes, I was in. I'm like, okay. It's set in the 90s, as the title suggests, and it definitely has the feel of a late 90s teen horror flick. But I was just really surprised by how engaging it actually was. It had an interesting story, likable characters, good pacing, and even some cute lesbians. I mean, what more can any man ask for an evening's entertainment? Seriously. Unfortunately, I have to say I did not like the other two anywhere near as much. I thought they were kind of a letdown. But you can pretty much just watch the first one on its own. And I thought it was really, really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Now, something else that I watched on Netflix, probably about October, was The Chestnut Man, which was a 6-part Swedish mystery thriller whodunit miniseries. I heartily recommend this to anyone who hasn't seen this and who likes a good whodunit and mystery thriller. It had me gripped all the way through, from very early in the first episode, all the way through to the end, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I absolutely recommend The Chestnut Man to anyone who has not seen it yet. Now, something else that it's not exclusive to Netflix, but I've found it on there, was Young Sheldon, which is the spin-off of The Big Bang Theory. And it's been on terrestrial TV, but I've never bothered with it, mainly because I don't particularly like The Big Bang Theory. I mean, I watched it. I gave up on it around season 4 when they started turning it into a sort of nerd version of Friends. So I didn't really have much interest in this spin-off about Sheldon as a child, you know, like, But like I said, because it's Netflix and you just kind of click on stuff and watch it for a couple of minutes just to give it a go. And I actually did that with the first episode. And I got into it. I've watched the first 3 seasons. I would say it's actually really good and really funny. And in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, I haven't seen season 4 yet. I know they're on season 5 now in the States. I don't know whether Netflix is going to get season 4 or whether I'll have to fork out for a DVD. But I would say it's actually vastly superior to the show that spawned it, in my opinion. It's really good. And the kid is hilarious and just dead on nails it. I was really surprised by that. I really enjoyed that. Now, moving on again, one of the later things of the year, it was about November, I think, the Australian release anyway, was the Evil of the Daleks animation. That was the big talk of the town with Doctor Who fandom this year, especially classic Who fandom, and I was very much looking forward to it. And it's got very, very good reviews, more so than a lot of the animated stories do. Certainly more so than Fury from the Deep, which I really liked. And I hate to say it, but I have to be honest, I was not all that impressed with Evil of the Daleks. I mean, I think the animation is fine. Look, an animation has to be really, really awful for me to really, really, not like it because of the animation. Web of Fear is the perfect example. Otherwise, even basic animation is fine so long as it's a good story. And I think the problem is it might not be a good story. I know this is the controversy because it's one of the big classics supposedly. I'm not sure I agree based on the animation. I watched the first few episodes on a Monday night, the Monday that it came out, that I bought it. I couldn't really get into it, and so I kind of decided to finish it off and on another day because I thought maybe I was just tired. I did finish it off another day, and there was no such excuse. I struggled with this in much the same way that I struggled with the Faceless Ones. Only, as you'll know if you remember the 2020 overview, there was kind of a reason that my head wasn't really in the game with the Faceless Ones. There was no such reason with Evil, but I still just couldn't get into it. I really struggled with it. It's really long, and it feels really overextended for what the story is. And honestly, and again, I'll probably get brickbats chucked at me, but boiled down, the plot is actually kind of silly, don't you think? It's kind of dumb, honestly. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the original production was very classy, as you can see from the extant episode 2, and that probably helped it more than the animation does. But still, I found this really disappointing. Massively inferior to Power of the Daleks, and a bit of a bore. And that neatly brings me along to another thing. Power of the Daleks. Yes, I've reviewed this before, but I'm talking about the special edition, which I resisted buying. I said I wasn't going to buy it. I'm not going to buy it. I bought the bloody thing twice. I bought it on DVD. I bought it on Blu-ray to get the colour version. I struggled with both of them, and I'm like, I'm not buying it again. Well, it was a lean month, and I thought, okay, we'll give it a try. And honestly, look, I'm no expert, and I could not tell you what the differences are, but I thought the special edition was vastly superior to the original. I actually thoroughly enjoyed Power of the Daleks this time, watching the special edition. I found it really atmospheric, really gripping, and just really, really good. I was kind of blown away by it, especially, considering my reaction to the first version, where I was kind of like falling asleep. So yeah, like I said, I can't tell you. I'm sure there's other YouTube videos where you can look at all of the differences and see what they actually difference. But it felt a lot slicker. It felt a lot more atmospheric, and it really just got me into the story a lot more. And yeah, I loved it. For my money, it's definitely better than Evil of the Daleks. One of the last things that I saw in this year was James Wan's Malignant, which was an interesting little horror movie. A young woman finds herself somehow psychically linked to the crazed killer that murdered her abusive boyfriend and is now targeting others. But is the killer closer than she might think? This 2021 movie has been somewhat divisive, with some hating the nutso twist and the descent into full-on 80s movie comedy horror zaniness in the last act, and others loving it. I rather enjoyed it. I would argue it could have perhaps been a little campier in the first half, so that there's such a shift in tone wouldn't seem quite as much of a shift. And I would also say that the cast, they're all right. They have that modern cinema thing of being kind of bland and rather nondescript. They certainly lack the kind of campy relish that a real 80s movie cast would have delivered in a film like this. That being said, I thought it was pretty good. It was, it's pretty much the only 2021 movie I've seen that I've liked. Granted, I've not seen many. Even Happiest Season was actually 2020. I just saw it in 2021. Oh well. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. And finally, I guess, I actually got for Christmas, ahead of the Australian release, the animation of Galaxy 4, which I thought was okay. I don't know, the animations have been a little bit disappointing for me this year. The last one that I really liked was Fury from the Deep, which everybody else hated. I thought it was thoroughly gripping, and the animation style didn't bother me. I think I probably liked Galaxy 4 a little bit more than Evil. A, because it was shorter, and B, because I was expecting less. I wasn't expecting some great all-conquering classic. I was just expecting a middling Hartnell story, and that's pretty much what it is. I still think we're kind of losing some. I still think it's we're kind of still losing something. Even though I liked how colourful it was, I still think we're losing something without having the originals. Put it this way: animated Vicky is nowhere near as cute as the real one. I'm just saying. It was okay. I'm really hoping that I like Abominable Snowmen a lot more than I've liked this year's, because it's a little bit denting my enthusiasm. Oh well. Anyway, that's about it. I think that's my 2021. I have to be honest, 2021 has not been a very good year for me. Certainly in the last month. Oh dear God. I won't go into it here because I don't want to depress everybody, but yeah. I'll not be sad to see the back of this year, and I hope 2022 is a lot better. That being said, I think it's been a pretty good year for the channel. I mean, I'm pretty happy with my channel this year. I think the reviews have gone from strength to strength. We're a long way from, you know, text-to-speech Brian now. That seems an awful long time ago now. And there's been a lot of reviews that have kind of passed the 20 or even 25-minute mark, which is interesting. And I'm really happy with the music vids. Again, I think the music vids kind of went under a renaissance in early-ish 2020. But I've managed to keep that up throughout the whole of 2021. And I'm really proud of a lot of the vids I've done. I know they're not as popular as the reviews, especially the Doctor Who reviews, but I love doing them, so I'm going to keep doing them. I just hope I can keep up the momentum throughout 2021, especially now that I've finished the year tribute series, which kind of, you know, you weren't casting around for ideas because you knew pretty much what you were doing next. Might be a little bit trickier in 2022, but I hope I can keep it up because I love doing them. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching my stuff this year. I hope I can still keep talking to you and entertaining you in 2022. Happy New Year. I'll talk to you again soon.